What's going on YouTube? So as rivals continue exiting the midsize sedan segment, already popular products such as this Honda Accord have actually increased their market share. So with the Toyota Camry getting a refresh this year, Honda is not resting on its laurels, since the Accord is also refreshed with slightly updated styling and lots of new features throughout. But did they do enough to stay ahead of the Camry? Let's go ahead and find out. Now before we start checking out the exterior updates, I do want to mention one change to the trim structure itself. So for 2021, the EX trim level has been discontinued, and in its place you have this trim right here. This is the Sport SE, or Sport Special Edition, and what that includes, we'll go through that as we go through the video. But I want to talk about the changes up in the front across the entire model line. So you might not notice that anything has really changed. It is a subtle change, but the grille itself is a little bit wider this year, and you'll also notice you have these small chrome accents that run through it. Now across the top on all of these sport trim levels, you will have a darkened chrome finish that goes across here. It would of course just be regular chrome on the other trim levels. Now coming over here to your headlights, this is another area that's changed for 2021. You notice the design itself looks a little bit different. And also the technology behind it is a little bit different, since Honda says it has wider illumination so it lights up the road a little bit better. Now previously, fully LED headlights, as in LED low and high beams, were on the Touring only. That's moved down to the sport trim level and above, so the vast majority of them have this upgraded design. And then down below you will also find an LED fog light on the sport trim level and above, inside of a new black housing. So squatting down here at the wheels, of course no refresh would be complete without some updated wheel options. So as far as the lineup, some of them are new, some of them are carryover from last year. So the LX trim level and the EXL trim level, those are going to have 17-inch alloys with different designs. However, when you get to the sport trim levels, those are going to throw in these really nice 19-inch contrast alloys, which I have always really liked. New for 2021 though, the Touring trim level comes with a unique 19-inch alloy. And then moving on up here to your mirrors. They are painted black on the sport trim levels. As far as your technology inside of the mirror, you're going to have heating on this Sport SE trim level. But if you want blind spot monitoring, that's going to require the EXL.
Now Honda didn't change a lot in the front, but here at the rear you're going to see even less changes for 2021. However, I really don't think Honda needed to make a bunch of changes, since this has always been a pretty good looking vehicle from the rear. Now, breaking down the individual design elements, you're going to have a few new elements. So up top we have a blacked out spoiler, as well as a blacked out shark fin antenna on the top, which really has a nice contrasting look. And then for the taillights, these are going to be exactly the same as last year, so they're partially LED. The brake light is LED, however the reverse light and turn signal is incandescent. And then dropping down, we have exposed horizontal exhaust outlets, and that's going to be on the Sport as well as the Touring trims. Now Honda has also updated their safety suite for 2021 by adding an advanced adaptive cruise control system that now lane centers, and if you go for the Touring trim, you will also have low-speed braking. Now that's in addition to what was standard last year, which is like your forward emergency braking, as well as your auto high beam headlamps. Well, anyway guys, you've seen the 2021 changes for the exterior of this Accord, but there are some changes on the inside, so let's go ahead and check that out before we take it out in a spin.
So one of the things that the new Sport SE trim level throws in, as opposed to the regular Sport, is a standard smart entry system with remote start. Now of course all the trim levels above that will also come with this same system. And then like in all other Hondas, to unlock the door, just reach behind the handle since there is a sensor. Now checking out the cabin of this refreshed Accord, you will notice that it does look mostly the same as it did before, since most of the changes are a little bit subtle. But before we get into what's new, let's go ahead and talk about your interior material and color options. So your LX, that's going to come standard with cloth seating. Then your Sport 1.5T and 2.0T, those are going to come with a leather and cloth combination seat. Now, when you upgrade to this Sport SE, the EXL, or the Touring, that's going to get you full leather seating. And as you can see, there is a little bit of a different stitching design on board for 2021. Now, as far as the colors, all the trims except for the Sports will have the choice between black or ivory. All the Sport trims are black only. Turning over here to the door trim, you're going to find nice materials reflected up here. So you have a nice leatherette material across the armrest as well as this area above it. And all this is going to be soft touch. Every Sport trim will have a faux carbon fiber trim. And then down below you're going to find 2 fully automatic windows. As we drop down, you will find the aluminum pedals here on the Sport SE. And one of the really nice things about the Accord does continue for 2021, and that's that you have a 12-way power adjusting seat standard on all but the very base trim level. And then, like I was saying, these seats, they are real leather. I definitely like the updates that Honda made to the stitching. Has a more elaborate design with different types of perforation inside. Now, ever since this generation of the Accord first came out, we have definitely been fans of the material quality inside the cabin, so thankfully that does carry on for 2021. So across your upper dash, this is all going to be covered in a nice soft touch plastic. Dropping down, again, we'll find some more of that faux carbon fiber trim. You do have a faux wood if you choose some of the upper end trim levels. This area here is going to be hard touch, but you will notice we actually have a nice leatherette padding that goes across the console here with a color contrast stitching detail. And in typical Honda fashion, everything is going to fit together perfectly. Now, standard across all the trim levels, you do have push button start. So checking out the gauges, you do continue to have the cool setup, which basically combines a 7-inch display on this side and then analog gauges on this side, which is honestly a little bit hard to tell right off the bat. Now you can continue to press the home button right here on the steering wheel and go through a whole bunch of different settings, and it changes the design as well. I do want to point out one kind of subtle change for 2021, and that's that you have a rear seat belt reminder for all the passengers, including all 3 in the back. Now, if you went for the Touring, you would also have a head-up display. Now, coming back to the steering wheel, of course you have electric power assisted steering, and Honda does nicely include this leather wrap steering wheel with the double contrast stitching on all but the very base model. As far as the wheel itself, it is going to be manual tilt and telescoping. However, heating remains unavailable in the United States. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into interior storage. So I'm going to start out underneath our center console, as always. It definitely remains one of the bigger options in the class. We have a little tray which we can remove, and then once inside, we have a lot of space and a nice rubber pad down at the bottom. As far as getting our coupons out, check that out, guys. We can set those in there without even folding them. Very impressive for a midsize sedan. Up in front of that, you've got your 2 cup holders. And then you can push back this little tray here, and you'll notice you have a really deep and nice storage area, again with a rubber lining. And for 2021, your USB ports have been relocated up here to a more convenient location, along with a second 12-volt outlet. Oh, and I do also want to point out that this will be a wireless phone charging pad on EXL and above. Alright, now checking out the shifter, this situation has stayed the same for 2021 as well, so you'll continue to have this traditional style shifter if you go for the 1.5 liter turbo, or if you go for the 2 liter turbo, it will be replaced by the push button electronic shifter. But of course, using this one is super simple. You're just going to pull back for drive. You can shift through some manual simulated gear changes with these paddle shifters if you choose one of the 3 sport trims. Then heading into reverse, Honda does nicely include a standard backup camera with active trajectory and 3 different angles across every single trim level. However, there is not a 360-degree camera offered, but the top 2 trim levels do also come with parking sensors. And then back behind the shifter, you have your 2 additional drive modes. You have your button to defeat the auto start stop system, and then you also have your electronic parking brake and brake hold function. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to check out here are your climate controls. So Honda does include dual zone automatic climate control across all of the models. And just like I've been saying for the past 3 years, I really like this setup because it has really nice and high quality buttons. And you even have the cool effect of the button itself glowing red when you turn it up and glowing blue when you turn the temperature down. So that's pretty cool. Off to the side, you're also going to find 3-stage heated seats on this Sport SE and above. However, if you want seat ventilation, that's going to be reserved for the Touring only. Okay, so let's go ahead and dig into the audio systems. Now, of course, as you'd expect, you do have a wide variety of different systems to choose depending on which trim level you pick. This Sport SE aligns in the middle option, so this is an 8-speaker sound system, and we'll go ahead and sample it now. So overall sound quality is quite good. Okay, so let's dig into this main display here. Now at initial glance, it doesn't look like anything has changed, but there are some updates. Most importantly is the fact that what you're looking at here is the 8-inch display, and it is now standard across all of the trim levels, including the base LX, which previously had a smaller display. In addition, you now have standard Android Auto and standard Apple CarPlay across all of the trim levels. New for 2021 is wireless abilities. Now we don't have that on this specific example because it is included on just the EXL and the Touring trim levels. Now, as far as the system itself, the Accord already had the latest Honda Link system, so obviously that does carry on for 2021. Built-in navigation, that's going to be on the EXL and the Touring trim level, and then only on the Touring will you have a Wi-Fi hotspot. So moving on up here, we do have a manual dimming mirror on this example, but it would be auto dimming on the EXL or the Touring. And then we also don't have a moonroof on the Sport SE, and that's because that is reserved for the EXL and the Touring as well.
Now the Honda Accord's rear seat has always been a really strong suit for this vehicle because it has a ton of space and a lot of comfort. So as far as the space measurements, it's going to come in at 40 inches of rear legroom and 37 inches of rear headroom, which just place it ahead of the competition like the Toyota Camry as well as the Nissan Altima. Now as far as your feature set, there are going to be some changes for 2021, namely, you'll probably notice this right off the bat, you do have 2 charging USB ports, and that's actually going to be standard on all but that very base LX trim. Dropping down, we have a quite large storage cubby. That would be vents on the higher end models. If we fold down the armrest, we have cup holders inside, and it is also worth noting if you want heated rear seats, the Touring does offer that. Now walking up to the trunk, all you have to do to open it is locate the button under the lid, and it does open right up. Now as far as the space itself, it's going to be rated at 16.7 cubic feet, which places it quite a bit ahead of the main competition like the Toyota Camry and Nissan Altima. Definitely a lot of space back here that you will enjoy. Now as far as how Honda has finished it, we do have a carpeting along the floor, and if we lift the floor up, we do have a spare tire. And then it is also worth noting that the seats do fold 60-40 split on all but that very base LX model. Now your passenger seat is actually going to be power adjusting, and that's going to be included on this Sport SE trim level and higher. And then as far as the glove box itself, it is quite good sized. I'm very impressed by that. And as far as how the coupons fit in there, lots and lots of space, so certainly you and all of your family can save money on food. And then up top, we do have a mirror as well as a light, and it does also detach and extend.
So there's our first acceleration, up to about 60 miles an hour with this 2021 Honda Accord. So like with most of the elements on the exterior and the interior, you don't have radical changes as far as the powertrain is concerned. So most of the models, they're going to come standard with the 1.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder like in other Honda applications, and it continues to make 192 horsepower, 192 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers are competitive, if not a little bit more than a lot of the competition.
Yeah, it definitely feels fine accelerating off. It's not going to like blow your mind or anything, but definitely has enough power. And it is worth noting that this engine is quite a bit quieter than direct competition like the Toyota Camry. That 1.5 liter turbo is one of the quietest engines you can get.
Yeah, it's a tiny motor and it is really, really quiet. Now, of course, like Mason said, it's not going to blow you away, but if you want something with more power, Honda does offer that. They still have the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that you can get on the touring trim level as well as the sport trim level.
Yeah, and that's going to have 252 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque, and we will, of course, do a review on one of those sometime later this year, so stay tuned for that.
Right. And one thing to note, that's no longer available on the EXL trim level as an option for 2021.
But just cruising along here, I do want to discuss, this is a mid-size sedan, so obviously this is what you're going to be doing most of the time is just cruising down a highway going around 60 miles an hour. The Accord has always really impressed me in this area because it has a absolutely fantastic and super comfortable suspension, and it really just puts comfort at the forefront, even if you're in a sport trim like this. And I will go ahead and get a sound level reading so we can see how quiet it is in here.
We're going to take it at 55.
So going at 55 miles an hour, we're looking at 57.5 decibels, which that's very solid. I do believe the Camry tested at a higher figure than that, so this is going to be a little bit quieter than that.
As far as your transmission, you do have a CVT transmission with the 1.5 liter turbo that most of the people will get, but if you choose the 2-liter, Honda does pair that to the more exciting 10-speed automatic transmission, kind of like what you get in the new TLX. And speaking of exciting, kind of going around that corner reminds me, I definitely want to talk about the dynamics behind the Accord. Thankfully, Honda did not mess with this area because you can debate which midsize sedan is the best driving, but no matter who you ask, they're definitely going to say the Accord is at the very top of the class. Things are just really impressive on board, really great cornering. It corners really flat, the chassis is super controlled. Love the steering as well. It's lightweight, for everyday living, of course, but super responsive, as you can see. This Honda really just nails the dynamics here on the Accord because, like I said, it's everyday livable, but also it's fun when you kind of go around corners and stuff. So now it's time to go ahead and talk about our slam dunk and airball.
Yep.
So for the airball, This is not like a super big complaint, but we do think that Honda could have adjusted a few elements to at least make it look more like a refresh. Where, like I said, we don't really complain about the way that this vehicle looks or the features that it has. They're really good. It's just that sometimes when people, especially if you had one from like 2018 and maybe you want to upgrade, it would be nice to see maybe the styling or some other things adjusted in a way that people would notice a little bit more.
And I guess our slam dunk can kind of go directly with that. You know, the slam dunk is really just going to be the overall, I don't know, value kind of product itself. It's such a solid offering within the segment. It's so hard to pinpoint something that this vehicle does bad. And that really is quite exceptional, because normally you can kind of find something to nitpick at. And this is really just a hard vehicle to do that in.
Now that was our auto start stop system. I have noticed here with this new version of the Accord, certainly engages a lot more frequently. It is more aggressive, but as usual, we have the defeat button that we can turn it off if you don't like it.
And that does lead us into the fuel economy for this vehicle. Now, of course, the Accord has always been very strong in this area, and that does continue for 2021. So the one that we have here is going to have very good fuel economy. So 29 city, 35 highway, 32 combined, and that's going to be for both the sport and touring trim levels with the 1.5 liter. And then if you go for the 2 liter and the sport or touring, that's going to be reduced down to 26 combined. And then concluding things here, we're going to talk about the pricing. So that's going to be an area, it increases around $1,000 for 2021. So you're going to have a little bit of an increase this year, but not too bad. So the LX is $24,770, Sport $27,230, Sport SE $28,720, and EXL $31,990, Sport 2 liter $31,910, and Touring 2 liter $36,700. Now, Honda doesn't really do options, so we're just going to add in the destination charge as well as the optional paint for $395. Brings this one to $30,070. Really an exceptional value to be looking at just over $30,000. You're getting a lot here. Really nothing to complain about, as I said a little earlier.
But overall, to conclude this video, of course, like we already said, this 2021 Accord is not a monumental change with the refresh. However, like we said, it's such a solid product that when Honda just makes a few changes, that's really all that was necessary.
Well guys, we hope you enjoyed watching one of the first in-depth looks at the refreshed 2021 Honda Accord Sport SE. We really appreciate you watching this video, and if you enjoyed watching, be sure to help us out by hitting that subscribe button down below. All it's going to do is give you notifications on all of our most recent content, and we have lots and lots of Honda content if you enjoyed this video. But anyway, we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.